Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how quiet the world feels the moment you finally let go of someone who once consumed your heart? You've stopped calling. You've stopped checking her Instagram at 2 a.m. You've stopped rehearsing conversations in your head, hoping for a different ending. And then, just when you found your peace, she reappears. Not with an apology that could rewrite history, not with words that will heal old wounds, but with eyes that linger longer than they used to, with a tone that's softer than before, and with a sudden interest in the life she once walked away from. Why does this happen? Why does a woman seem to notice your worth so vividly the moment you stop chasing her? Is it ego? Is it longing? Or is it the magnetic pull of someone who is finally living for himself? In today's conversation, we're going deep into the psychology of this moment, not to manipulate, but to understand. Because when you understand the emotional undercurrent that happens when a woman sees you've moved on, you begin to understand something even more valuable, the truth about your own power. You see, moving on is not just about dating someone else or deleting her number. It's about a shift in your energy that she can feel even if you haven't spoken in months. It's subtle, almost invisible, yet it carries more weight than any speech you could ever give. Because when you move on, you're no longer orbiting around her sun. You have built your own gravity. And women, they notice gravity. At first, she might not even consciously realize it. She's living her life, telling herself that you're probably still there, still thinking about her, still holding space for her in the way you always did. Maybe she's not cruel. Maybe she just assumed that the world she once had access to would always be open. But here's the truth. The moment you start living fully in your own life, she senses a door has closed. That's when something shifts in her. You might think attraction is born from presence, but in reality, desire often ignites in absence. It's the space that makes us wonder, the silence that forces us to listen to our own hearts. When you were available, emotionally, physically, digitally, she could feel your presence like a constant background hum. But when you remove that hum, suddenly the room feels too quiet. That quiet becomes a mirror, reflecting back to her what she no longer has. And in that mirror, she starts to see something she didn't before. She sees the man you've become without her. Maybe you've been hitting the gym, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Maybe your laughter is lighter because it's no longer weighed down by hope that she'll change her mind. Maybe you've started investing in your passions again. Those little things she once overlooked because they didn't fit the script she had for you. You've stopped performing for her approval. And paradoxically, that's when she starts paying attention. Here's the paradox of human connection. We don't just respond to love, we respond to loss. Not necessarily the loss of a person's existence, but the loss of their gaze, the loss of their energy directed toward us. And when she sees you've moved on, she's not just seeing you differently, she's feeling herself differently in relation to you. That's powerful because our sense of identity in relationships is shaped by how the other person sees us. When you were still holding on, you were affirming her place in your life. Without that affirmation, she starts to question her place in your story. Sometimes this awakening isn't even about wanting you back. It's about wanting back the feeling she had when she knew she mattered to you. She may not be ready to love you, but she's suddenly ready to be curious. And this is where men often make their mistake. They confuse her curiosity for commitment. They think her reaching out, her sudden warmth, her playful comments on old posts means she's realized what she lost and is ready to make it right. But curiosity is not the same as readiness. Curiosity just means there's a door slightly ajar and she's peeking in to see what's changed. So, the first thing you need to understand is this. When a woman sees you've moved on, her reaction is rarely about your new life alone. It's about what your new life reflects back to her about herself. Now, here's the part that might sting. In many cases, she didn't expect you to heal without her. She didn't expect you to be okay, let alone to thrive. And when she sees that, it challenges the narrative she built about you. Maybe she thought you'd always be the one who loved her more. Maybe she believed deep down that your life would always orbit hers. When that belief collapses, it's like an emotional earthquake. You've shown her something she didn't plan for: resilience. And resilience is attractive. Not because it plays hard to get, but because it communicates self-worth. And nothing is more magnetic than a man who knows his value, not in an arrogant way, but in a quiet, unshakable way. But here's where I want you to pay attention. The point is not to use moving on as a strategy to get her back. That's manipulation, and it always reveals itself in the end. The point is to move on for real, to shift your life so deeply into alignment with your own joy and purpose that whether she notices or not, you're good, you're grounded. You're free, because when you do that, you stop living in the echo of her decisions. You start living in the center of your own choices. And that's when your energy changes. You walk differently. You speak differently. You even listen differently, not waiting for the pause in the conversation to insert your longing, but truly engaging with life as it comes. This is the space where men rediscover themselves. You realize that she was never the source of your value. She was just one chapter in your story. And once you embrace that, you're no longer trying to reopen a closed door. You're opening new ones. And here's the beautiful twist. Whether or not she steps back into your life becomes irrelevant. Because now, you're not chasing, you're choosing. And when a woman feels that shift, it creates an entirely different kind of tension. Not the needy pull of I need you to see me, but the powerful presence of I see myself. And I invite you to meet me here if you can. This is where the real transformation begins. When a woman sees you've moved on, the first ripple inside her is curiosity. But the second is something far more personal. It's the uncomfortable awareness that she no longer has the same emotional access to you. And that awareness isn't just about you, it's about her own sense of importance. We all like to think we're above this, that we don't need validation from others to feel whole. But the truth is, we are relational beings. Our sense of value is often reflected in the eyes of those who once adored us. And when that gaze shifts away, when it no longer lingers, no longer lights up at our presence, it forces us into a reckoning. For her, this reckoning can feel like a bruise she can't stop pressing. It's not always about romantic love. Sometimes it's about identity. If she defined herself, even subconsciously, as the one who had your heart, the one who could always draw you back with a smile or a soft word, then losing that role feels like losing a part of herself. Here's where it gets interesting. This reaction is often involuntary. She might not have planned it, might not even have wanted to think about you again, but the moment she sees you laughing without her, connecting with other people, looking unburdened, something primal is triggered. It's the realization that life goes on without her, and that realization can be deeply unsettling. This is why sometimes you'll notice sudden reappearances in small, almost innocent ways. A like on a photo from 3 months ago, a comment that feels casual but carries a weight you can't quite ignore. Maybe she messages you about something mundane, an old memory, a shared friend, a recommendation for a book or song. On the surface, it's harmless. But underneath, these gestures are often tests. They're small probes to see where you stand. Will you respond instantly with the same enthusiasm you once had? Will you keep it short, showing her that you're no longer available in the same way? She's looking for clues, and those clues matter to her because they answer a question she might not say out loud. Do I still have an effect on him? Now, I want you to hear this part clearly. Her wondering if she still has influence over you is not the same as wanting to rebuild a life with you. Sometimes, it's just about restoring a sense of control over the narrative. This is why I often tell men, don't confuse engagement with intention. Her stepping closer doesn't mean she's ready to stay. And if you let your guard down too quickly, you may find yourself back in the same place you fought so hard to leave, hoping for her consistency and getting only her curiosity. But let's step into her perspective for a moment, because understanding her view will give you clarity and emotional balance. Imagine her watching you from a distance, maybe through social media, maybe through mutual friends. She sees you smiling in a photo, and it's not the forced smile she remembers from when you were trying to convince her, and maybe yourself, that you were okay. This smile looks real. Your posture is relaxed. Your eyes are clearer. There's a lightness about you that wasn't there before. And here's the thing about emotional connection. We store each other in our minds in the state we last remember. She remembers you as the man who was hurting, waiting, holding space for her. Seeing you in a new state breaks that mental image, and it forces her to reevaluate. That reevaluation can stir old emotions. She might remember moments when you made her feel deeply connected, when your presence felt like home. Nostalgia has a way of painting over the reasons we left, making the good times glow brighter and the hard times fade into the shadows. And yet the human heart is complicated. Sometimes she's not reaching out because she's ready for a future with you, but because she misses the way she felt when she knew she could reach you anytime. That's not love. That's comfort. And comfort is a powerful drug. This is why your next step, as a man who's truly moved on, is to hold your line, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Because when you've done the work to rebuild yourself, you learn that not every invitation to reconnect needs to be accepted. There's another layer here, and this one is deeply psychological. For some women, seeing you move on awakens a competitive instinct. It's not malicious, it's simply human nature. We want to be chosen, even if we don't plan on choosing back. If she sees another woman by your side, or even just senses that your attention is elsewhere, it can trigger the part of her that wants to reclaim what was once. Again, this isn't always about wanting you back. Sometimes it's about wanting to win back the sense of significance she feels she's lost. And I'll tell you something you may not want to hear. The more grounded, joyful, and self-contained you become, the stronger this reaction can be. Because it's not about proving her wrong or making her jealous. It's about showing her, and more importantly, yourself, that your life is abundant with or without her. The challenge for you is to remain anchored. If she steps closer and you find yourself feeling that old rush of attention, ask yourself, do I want her presence in my life now, or am I just addicted to the feeling of being wanted again? This is the moment where many men falter, and where the cycle repeats repeats, but if you can hold steady, you'll discover something even more valuable than her renewed interest, the ability to choose connection from a place of strength, not need. And when you stand in that space, her reaction, whether it's curiosity, nostalgia, or something deeper, becomes secondary to the truth that you are already whole. Peace is different from distance. Distance can be a performance, a silent protest, a wall you put up to prove you're fine. But peace can't be faked. It shows in the way you carry yourself, the way you engage with life, the way you no longer arrange your world around her absence. And when she sees that, not hears about it, not guesses at it, but truly sees it, something deeper stirs. Because peace tells her a story she wasn't prepared to hear, that the chapter she thought she defined in your life has been rewritten without her as the central character. At first, she might watch quietly. She notices the way your tone has changed. No bitterness, no passive-aggressive undertones, no subtle hooks for her attention. She sees your conversations are lighter, your eyes more present when you're with others, your laughter unchained from the past. And here's the thing, this kind of peace isn't just attractive. It's disarming. It disrupts the familiar rhythm she had with you. She may have known how to navigate your longing, how to respond to your attempts to reconnect, how to step in and out when it suited her. But peace removes that predictable pattern. It leaves her with nothing to push against, nothing to pull back toward, nothing to measure her power by. So instead, she starts to reach in different ways. You might notice her bringing up moments you both shared, as if pulling old photographs out of a box to see if you linger over them with her. You might notice her asking about things she never showed interest in before, your work, your hobbies, your plans for the future. This isn't always an attempt to reignite romance. Sometimes it's an attempt to re-anchor herself in a place where she used to feel significant. But here's what's fascinating: when your peace is genuine, her attempts to draw you back into that old dance don't affect you the same way. You can appreciate the memory without needing to relive it. You can answer her questions without offering more than you're willing to give. And she feels that difference. This is where her reactions can take two forms. In one version, she steps closer, genuinely curious about the man you've become. Not the man she knew when things were tangled with longing and hurt, but the man who stands before her now, self-assured, content, whole. In the other version, she pulls back, realizing that the role she once played in your life has been taken over by your own self-love and new connections. Both reactions tell you something important. Your healing has shifted the dynamic in a way that can't be undone. There's another layer here that most people miss. When you find peace, you're no longer driven by the need to prove anything. Not to her, not to yourself, not to anyone watching from the sidelines. And when that need disappears, you interact differently. Your presence becomes a choice rather than a chase. And women, perhaps more than anyone, can feel the difference between a man who's there because he needs her approval and a man who's there because he simply wants to share his presence. That difference is magnetic. But here's where you need to be careful. Magnetism invites attention, but attention is not the same as intention. Just because she's drawn back toward you doesn't mean the relationship you once had is suddenly viable again. It simply means she's responding to your energy shift. If you allow that attention to become the measure of your worth, you'll be right back where you started, waiting for her to validate you. And that's not peace, that's dependence in disguise. The real test of your growth is this: can you hold on to your peace even when she offers you something you used to crave? Can you stay grounded when she sends that late night message? When she lingers a little longer in conversation? When she suddenly becomes more affectionate in her tone? Because if your peace depends on her staying away, it's not peace. It's just fragile control. True peace is when she can step back into your world for a moment and you still feel the same solidity inside you that you felt when she was gone. And here's where things often get very real for her. She realizes that she's not the center of your emotional universe anymore. She realizes that you're not holding space for her return. And that realization can either spark a deeper desire to be close to you again or create a quiet grief that she may never express out loud. Either way, the power dynamic has shifted, not because you forced it, but because you grew. And growth changes the game. It changes how you show up, how you respond, how you choose. It changes the very foundation of your interactions. And that change is irreversible, because once you've tasted what it's like to live from a place of self-respect and inner calm, you can't unknow it. You might still care about her, you might still remember moments with warmth, but you no longer need those moments to define you. And that, more than any clever line or strategic silence, is what makes you most compelling in her eyes. When a woman truly feels that shift in you, when she senses that your emotional weather no longer changes with her seasons, her instinct is rarely to walk away quietly. Sometimes she will, if she's already fully invested in another life. But often human nature draws us back to places where we once felt secure, valued, and desired. And so she might start to reappear. At first, it might be light touches on the edges of your life. A quick message that pretends to be about something practical. Do you remember the name of that little cafe we went to? Or, I just heard this song and it reminded me of you. It seems harmless, even sweet, but it's not really about coffee shops or music. It's about measuring the temperature of your door. Is it still warm enough to open? Other times she may be bolder. You might hear from mutual friends that she's been asking about you, or she might suddenly suggest meeting just to catch up. And here's where your old patterns may try to resurface. That rush of attention, the old reflex to make space for her, to bend your schedule because she reached out. But you have to remember something essential. Your peace wasn't built by accident. It was built by choice. And every choice you make from here must protect it. Protecting your boundaries doesn't mean being cold or dismissive. In fact, the most powerful boundaries are delivered with warmth. You can be kind without being pulled back into old dynamics. You can listen without agreeing to revisit what hurt you. You can appreciate her words without making them the compass for your next steps. This is where a lot of men misstep. They believe that in order to prove they've moved on, they have to be distant, almost icy. But distance rooted in fear is just another form of attachment. True detachment is when you can be fully present without losing yourself. She will notice this. In fact, the more you engage from this grounded space, the more she will realize that the access she once had to your emotions is no longer on demand. She may try new tactics, sharing personal struggles, confiding in you about challenges, or reminding you of moments when you were there for her. These are not always manipulations. Sometimes they are genuine. But regardless of intent, you must ask yourself, if I open this door wider, will it serve both of us, or just reopen wounds? Here's something important to understand. Her re-entry attempts are not always conscious. Sometimes they're driven by deeper emotional needs, a need for reassurance, for familiarity, for a sense of significance. If you mistake those needs for love, you'll give more than you should and expect more than she's ready to give. The balance you must strike is between compassion and clarity. Compassion allows you to treat her with respect and empathy. Clarity allows you to remember why you created distance in the first place. Without both, you risk slipping back into the very place you worked so hard to climb out of. And there's something else at play here, something subtle but powerful. The more you hold your boundaries with quiet confidence, the more she will start to see you as a different man than the one she left. Not better because you've improved for her, but better because you've grown for yourself. That distinction changes everything. This is when she may start to express regret. Not always directly, sometimes through hints, sometimes through wistful comments about how good things were, or how you always understood her. Other times, she may be more explicit, wondering aloud what it would have been like if you both had handled things differently. And here's the test: can you hear those words without making them a promise? Because they're not promises. They're feelings, and feelings are fluid. She may feel them deeply in the moment, but if nothing else changes, those feelings can fade as quickly as they appeared. Your job is not to decode her every word for hidden meaning. Your job is to stay anchored in your truth. When you do that, something remarkable happens. Whether she stays close, drifts away again, or tries to rekindle something, you will not be thrown off balance. You'll no longer be living in reaction to her movements. You'll be living in alignment with your own values and desires. And here's the quiet victory in that when you live this way, you stop fearing her return and you stop fearing her absence. You become free. There comes a moment when you realize that the story you've been living isn't about her anymore. It's not even about the two of you. It's about you. The man you've become through the journey of loving, losing, and finally letting go. That realization doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's a quiet Sunday morning, sunlight spilling across your table, coffee warm in your hands. You think about her and notice that the thought no longer carries a weight. No ache in your chest, no rush of what-ifs, just a memory, like a photograph you once treasured but no longer need to frame. This is when you know you've closed the loop, not because you've locked the door against her, but because the door no longer needs locking. What once could shake you now barely stirs you. And that's not coldness, that's freedom. When a woman sees you in this state, truly free, not pretending, not posturing, she may respond in one of two ways. She might step back completely, sensing that your journey has taken you beyond the place where she can reach, or she might step closer, drawn to the new man you've become, perhaps even ready to meet you there. But here's the truth: either way, it doesn't change who you are now, because the power you've built isn't conditional on her presence. You've redefined your life not around the absence of someone else, but around the abundance of your own choices. You've learned that attention is not the same as love, and that love is not the same as alignment. This doesn't mean you'll never love again. In fact, the opposite is true. When you let go in this way, you create space for something more real, more balanced, more mutual. You learn to meet people not from a place of needing to be filled, but from a place of wanting to share what you've already cultivated inside yourself. And here's the part that matters most: you don't lose your softness in the process. Because true strength isn't about building walls so high that no one can climb them. It's about knowing you can open the gate at any time, and also knowing you can close it if the path ahead isn't right for you. You begin to carry yourself differently in every relationship, romantic or otherwise. You listen more because you're no longer listening for clues about whether someone will stay. You give more freely because you're no longer afraid of what will happen if they leave. You stop performing for love and start living in it. And when you live like that, people feel it. Not just women, everyone. Friends, colleagues, family. Your presence becomes lighter yet more grounded. You've stopped trying to prove yourself and started simply being yourself. So, when she sees you've moved on, truly moved on, what happens to her is ultimately secondary to what has happened to you. She might feel regret, she might feel curiosity, she might even feel a pull toward you she can't explain. But none of that will define your direction anymore, because you have stepped into a truth that changes everything. You are not the man waiting for someone else's decision to validate your worth. You are the man who has already chosen himself, and in the end, that's what makes you unforgettable. So if you're watching this right now, wondering whether she's noticed your absence, wondering whether she'll ever regret letting you go, let that question go. Ask a better one. Am I living in a way that makes me proud to be me? If the answer is yes, you've already won. And that, my friends, is the kind of victory no one can take from you.